On February 17th, 2021, Amtrak Productions and I went to Upstate New York for a day of rail fanning as we were both on February break from school. We happened to be going on a great day for rail fanning too, as Q410, a train on the river line a few miles south of us, had the CSX Pride and Service trio. Knowing that we had a few hours before Q410 would be coming on the river line, we got set up at the furthest east crossing on the Selkirk sub known as Game Farm Road. Here's our first train of the day, Q634 with a couple of GEVOs. This isn't the first Q634 we'll see today as this one is late. This train here is Q634-15, meaning that it left its terminal city, Columbus, Ohio on the 15th. Later today we'll see Q634-16. Shortly after, Q159 came west from Selkirk with a CM44 and two GEVOs. The morning light here at Game Farm Road is bad in both directions, and it doesn't help that my camcorder has those annoying lines whenever the camera is looking at something bright like the sun. There's nothing I could really do to save this shot, so from here on out I'll be using my phone to film just to ensure that my footage of Q410 doesn't have those lines. The weather at Game Farm Road was terrible, so we decided to head south to the river line, less for train reasons, but just in search of a warmer and more hospitable place to railfan. We ended up at Route 144 in Hannacroix, the northernmost public access grade crossing on the river line. The river line isn't much different from the Selkirk sub, with the only big difference being that this line is considered a north to south line, not a east to west line like the Selkirk and Mohawk subs. The river line mainly carries CSX rail traffic along the Hudson River between New Jersey and Selkirk Yard just north of us. The first train we saw in Hannacroix was Q212 with another boring GEVO duo, but I think the leader on this train had a pretty cool horn. I believe it's an older K5HL, but I don't know my horns well enough to be any more specific than that. Next up was Q003, the westbound Amazon Express train from New Jersey to Chicago. Today it has a duo of AC44s, one YN2 and one YN3B. This is both the oldest and the newest paint scheme that the AC44s were painted in, which I think is sorta cool. After Q003, railfans began to gather at Hannacroix for what was quickly becoming the train heard around the world, as Q410 would later end up causing a lot of drama in Selkirk, and of course, any railfan whose Instagram saw nothing but the Spirit units on their feed for almost a week. Right before Q410, we heard that there was a southbound train coming, so everyone moved to the other side of the tracks just to make sure that they wouldn't be blocked by Q433, hence why I'm doing a going away shot of it. soon as the tail end of Q433 cleared the crossing, I ran across the tracks to get a non-backlit shot of Q410. Almost as soon as I made it across, Q410 rounded the corner and flew through Hannacroix at track speed. So anyway, I haven't really explained why everyone is out today for these units. It's a random Wednesday in February, so most people have school today, yet still the entire Riverline is covered in railfans from end to end, including some brave souls who chased this train all the way from New Jersey. This all started a few days prior when word got out that CSX's Pride and Service trio would be coming out of storage in Waycross, Georgia for the first time in over a year to stretch their legs. They eventually got put on Q410, a manifest from Waycross to Selkirk, two of CSX's biggest yards. Q410 is usually scheduled to get into Selkirk in the early morning, but luckily for us, not necessarily the crew though, they were held up in New Jersey all night due to brake issues on the leader 911. After hours of struggling with their locomotives, they finally ended up putting the mid-DPU 1776 on the head end of their train and having it lead long hood forward until the next big yard in North Bergen, New Jersey. By the time the issues were sorted out, the crew had already reached their 12-hour working limit and the train sat in South Kearney until the morning when another crew was available. Originally, Q410 was planned to get a GEVO tacked on the head end so 1776 wouldn't have to lead long hood forward up the Riverline, but to our luck, by the time Q410 was moving again, they just wanted to get to Selkirk before another locomotive broke, and they didn't want to waste any time with another engine. They ended up putting plug-and-play temporary ditch lights on the long hood of 1776 so it could get up to track speed on the Riverline, because the FRA doesn't allow trains to do more than 20 miles per hour through crossings without them. So that's the crazy series of events that caused the Pride and Service trio to not only come to Selkirk on the one day I was in New York, but also in daylight, and also with a long hood forward leader. As soon as Q410 cleared, we got on the road north to get drone photos of Q410 in Selkirk Yard. Much to our surprise, we ended up beating them to Selkirk and we got videos, but as you can hear in my video of Q410 arriving in Selkirk, it was too windy to safely fly a drone, so I decided not to do that. This shot at Selkirk served as a much better view of the locomotives, as they were still going pretty fast through Hannacroix. We stayed in Selkirk getting photos for about an hour until things started getting crazy. As you heard, a lot of railfans got in trouble for trespassing in Selkirk Yard, and a fight even broke out between a kid and a railroad employee. Not wanting any part in that, we got the heck out of there. Knowing that there were a lot more railfans in the area than usual, we headed to one of the most rarely shot spots on the line, known as French's Mills. This is an abandoned above-grade bridge in Guilderland right by French's Hollow Railroad Bridge. Not only is this a nice quiet railfanning spot, but it's also a pretty cool shot as you can be between tracks and you can be above trains, which is pretty cool. First up was Q158, an eastbound intermodal. This one had just 2 boring GEs, but it was in pretty decent light. Right after Q158 was Q205, one of the few trains on this line that comes from my home state of Massachusetts. As per usual, this one had a duo of GEVOs, this time in not so decent light. After a short dead period, we got one of the best trains on this line, Q621, an eastbound manifest from Maseno. If you've watched my past upstate New York videos, you would know that this train carries freight from Canada off the CN. Unfortunately, today it didn't have CNs as it does regularly, but this Q621 had a few classic EMDs dead in tow. Leading was a YN3B AC44, a YN2 AC44, and then a GP40-2 and an SD40-2. Behind this decent lash-up was a pretty short train, which I think could have been caused by the bad weather in the past few days, because as you'll see, this wasn't the only short train we saw today. Another dead period came and went, and getting the action going again was Q157, another intermodal. Even though Q157 was kinda disappointing, we got something that I was hoping to see here, a meet. Meeting Q157 was Q364. This one has a YN3B AC44 and a YN2 AC44. I'm starting to see a trend here. This is the third train today that has had a YN3B and a YN2 AC44 together today. I almost never see YN3B AC44s, and I actually think they look pretty cool with the boxcar logo. Right on Q364's tail was the second Q634 of the day that I was talking about. This one left Ohio on the 16th. I think it may have even left early because it had such a short train in tow. The last train of the day that we saw was Q627, which is usually a pretty interesting train with decent power, but unfortunately today it just had a GEVO on the head end and a GEVO in the middle.